Part 1. Daniel arrived at the abandoned house just before sunset. And although he told himself that the reason he stopped was practical cheap property, isolation, a chance to disappear from a life that had quietly collapsed, he felt something else pulling him toward the structure as it stood, at the end of a dying gravel road surrounded by unmoving trees, their branches frozen in the still air, as though the world itself refused to breathe near the place. And when he stepped out of the car, the silence pressed against his ears so heavily that even the faint crunch of his shoes against the stones sounded intrusive, as if he were disturbing something ancient and patient. And the front door, slightly open without wind to move it, seemed less like an invitation and more like a mouth paused mid-whisper. Yet he walked forward, convincing himself that houses are only wood and nails, and memory is only imagination. But the moment he crossed the threshold, the temperature shifted unnaturally, and the long hallway ahead stretched deeper than its exterior proportions allowed, lined with faded wallpaper that peeled, like drying skin, and picture frames turned deliberately toward the wall, as though ashamed to witness whoever entered, and every step he took echoed to long, lingering beyond the rhythm of his movement. And somewhere deep within the structure, a soft, dragging sound brushed against the floorboards, before stopping abruptly the instant he froze, making him question whether it had existed at all. And though he searched room after room, finding dust-draped furniture and a grand mirror clouded with age, he could not ignore the growing sensation that the house was not empty but observant, not hostile but attentive. And as twilight surrendered to darkness, the shadows pooled unevenly in corners that seemed deeper than geometry allowed. And when he climbed the staircase, the wood groaned, not in protest, but in recognition, and inside the upstairs bedroom, the air felt thicker, heavier, charged with the presence of something unspoken. And when he closed the door behind him, it reopened slowly without sound. And though he locked it and laughed nervously at the mechanics of old frames and swollen hinges, his reflection in the uncovered mirror appeared a fraction of a second too slow to follow his movement, creating a delay so subtle it might have been fatigue. Yet as midnight approached, the dragging noise returned from below, accompanied by a single deliberate knock from within the closet that stood against the far wall. And he remained motionless in the dark, listening to his own heartbeat merge with the quiet pulse of the house until 2:17 a.m. arrived, and the knock repeated, softer this time, as though something inside had realized patience was more effective than force. And in that suspended moment, Daniel understood with rising dread that the house was not surprised by his arrival, because it had been waiting. I've always been drawn to places with a story, the kind you feel in your bones the moment you step inside. That's what brought me to the Blackwood Manor, a place locals only whisper about. They say it doesn't stay the same for long. I just thought it was local folklore. Armed with my camera, I pushed open the heavy oak door. The air inside was thick, cold, and smelled of dust and something else, something metallic. I started in the grand foyer, ornate but decaying. I walked down a long hallway, filming the peeling wallpaper. But when I turned back, the foyer was gone. In its place was a brick wall. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a trick of the light. The house was changing. I tried to retrace my steps, but every turn led me deeper into a maze of unfamiliar rooms. A child's nursery with an empty rocking chair. A study with books scattered as if thrown in a rage. Then I saw the portraits. On every wall, the same family, their painted eyes following me. But in each new portrait I found, their smiles grew wider, more unsettling. The last one I found was in a dusty ballroom. It was a family portrait, but this time there was an extra figure standing in the shadows behind them. A tall, gaunt man with no face. As I stared, a nameplate on the frame caught my eye. It read, "The Architect." Suddenly, the house groaned, and the walls began to shift again, faster this time. The hallway I was in started to narrow, the ceiling lowering. Panic set in. I ran blindly through doorways that appeared and vanished. I could hear a faint, dry whisper echoing through the halls like rustling paper. Then I saw yet another portrait, freshly painted on a newly formed wall. It was the same family, but now they were all looking at someone new, standing with them in the painting. It was me, and behind me, the faceless architect was raising a hand, as if to welcome me home. The camera fell from my hands. I don't think I'm alone in here anymore. In fact, I don't think I've ever been. Thanks for watching. If you see this, tell them. Tell them not to come looking for me. Have you ever stumbled upon a place that just feels off? For Daniel, a young man looking for a quiet place to restart his life, finding the old Blackwood Manor seemed like a stroke of luck. It was a beautiful, albeit neglected, house offered for an impossibly low price. He couldn't resist. The moment he stepped inside, a strange calm washed over him, a feeling of finally being home. The first few days were perfect, but soon Daniel noticed peculiarities. The portraits on the walls, their eyes seemed to follow him. Whispers echoed from empty rooms, and shadows danced in the corner of his eye. He started finding personal items that weren't his. A forgotten scarf, a single earring, a half-finished book. He felt a constant, unseen presence, as if he was being watched. His unease grew. He tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't budge. The windows were sealed shut. Panic set in as he realized the house wasn't just his home. It was his prison. He was trapped. Then the truth began to dawn on him. Slowly, horribly. The previous residents never left. The house had absorbed them. He saw them then, not as ghosts, but as part of the house itself. Their faces subtly emerged from the wood grain of the walls. Their eyes were the dark knots in the floorboards. They were the watchers. And as Daniel's own energy began to fade, his body growing strangely transparent, he understood his new role. He wasn't the next resident. He was the next watcher, forever bound to the house, waiting to welcome the next unsuspecting soul who would come looking for a home. Thanks for watching, and be careful what you wish for. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.